DC Comics is going to be a digital comics publisher, and they will still do print comics, but that's not their focus anymore. Where it used to be that they would do their weekly comics, they would do their monthly comics, they would do their graphic novels, they would sell them in print, and then also stick them on their website. It's not going to be like that. They're going to focus on doing digital, and then they will stick some in print. Let me get into the article. I'll go over it with you. Make sure you subscribe. It's a huge help to me. Click the bell for notifications. And if you want to support my work, collegeofthedead.com. You can get a copy of College of the Dead Graduation Day. It's a zombie apocalypse series based on a college campus. And you can sign up at epicmermaids.com to be notified when the Epic Mermaids ongoing series, The Mermaids, is launched. It's coming out soon. Okay, back to this article. So this is coming from The Hollywood Reporter. It came out last Friday. There was a lot of updates. There's a lot of reading in between the lines here to kind of see what they're talking about. And I went ahead and I was really kind of surprised looking at this the other day and seeing how many times Jim Lee mentioned the word digital. And not just that, but also he mentioned it at the end. So when the Hollywood Reporter is asking him, where do you see DC Comics in 2 years? This is after all the restructuring, all the layoffs, all the integration with all the different parts of Warner Media, the new relationship with new Warner Media CEO Jason Kilar, and all the other executives and all the other realignment. He's saying, all he can say is digital, 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 digital. So they ask, where do you see DC in 2 years? He answers, you'll definitely see more international content. So this means they're telling Jim Lee, hey, listen, it's ridiculous that DC does not have more things going on internationally. You should be sourcing like 80% of your revenue from international sources. The world's a big place. The whole world knows who Batman is. They know who Wonder Woman is. They know who Superman is. They know who Aquaman is, etc., etc. And you guys have no international exposure, relatively speaking. That's insanity. You've spent too many years focusing on the direct market comic book stores, even as they've now completely almost disappeared. There are 2,000 comic book stores. There used to be more than 10,000, but even that, they've never really been that strong internationally. International is really never more than, 15%, 20% of the direct market, if that. All right. You'll see more digital content. When you talk about growing our business, both physical and digital, to me, the opportunities are global. Well, they better be, because if not, they're going to be mad at you. That's what we'll be focusing on. Sometimes that takes the form of content that we take here and translate and sell in other marketplaces. But we want to partner with creatives in various territories and unlock stories that feel authentic to their marketplaces, with characters that they can embrace as their own, and look for opportunities to take those characters and see them through our mythology. What does that sound like? I don't know, Batman crossovers with some French comic book characters? I guess, they can do that. There's no reason not to. There was a company called Gotham Comics Group, which later became Virgin Comics, that in the 1990s got the rights to Marvel to publish in India. I just happen to know those guys from comic publishing days. And what they were allowed to do was do their own reboot of Spider-Man as an awkward teenager that gets superpowers, but redo him as an Indian persona. So it was really many years before the Miles Morales take, where Spider-Man was a different ethnicity. And they did a lot of business in India. But does DC do that? Apparently not enough of it. So they're going to do more of that. With digital, boy, they love digital. That's more of a windowing issue. Meaning we'll go out there with digital content, and the stuff that performs well in digital also performs well in print. Which sounds like a digital-first strategy and a digital-first focus. Meaning they're focused on digital. Digital, digital, digital. And then if something, as he says here, a good example of that is Injustice, the digital comics that tied into the video game. When that came out, it was the best-selling digital comic of the year. It outsold Batman, and it brought a lot of adjacent fans into our business. And when we took that content and reprinted it in physical form, we sold hundreds of thousands of units. it was a big hit in physical as it was in digital. So this is kind of obvious. If they have a big video game project, why wouldn't they tie that to digital comics? And why digital specifically? Because periodical comics, and I love periodical comics, to me that's what comics really is print comics, but they're not really available. It's hard to get print comics. It's not something that's an impulse buy. It used to be that comics were kind of everywhere. Now comics are kind of nowhere because they don't make money for the people that stock them and try to resell them. So you have to kind of, go with a media and a format that, you can somehow associate and have it be an impulse purchase. So there's all sorts of things they can do when they're promoting the video game to say, hey, click here to get the Injustice digital comic, and then lead people into their DC Comics digital comics website, readdc.com. So it makes a lot of sense, and it's almost kind of unforgivable that they haven't been doing more of this, because they have outlets like this Injustice video game and these characters in these comic titles. Like, why weren't they doing more with digital? Who knows? We're using that as a model as we go out and do more digital content. We'll take the most successful books and repackage it as physical books. Now, does this mean that they're going to cut back aggressively on their periodicals of their ongoing series? They've kind of already started to do that. They just canceled about 9 or 10 titles, which is a lot. That's not a small number, especially in a short amount of time. But it's hard to tell from how this is explained. Like, does that mean that they're going to do only print versions of successful digital comics, where Jim Lee can go to his bosses and say, hey guys, look, we already did a lot with digital and it's supported by a video game. Can I please put this in print now? Doesn't sound like it's going to get that extreme unless they don't have more success very soon. But it sounds like it could get that way. He says here, I think there's definitely business to be had in physical periodicals. But that said, I think there's a greater upside in digital because we can go to a more global audience and the barrier to entry, especially with the health event, is lower. So what he's saying is, I think there's definitely a business to be had in physical periodicals. Well, their whole business was supposed to be DC comic books. It's supposed to be physical periodicals. But as the title of the article says, he had to say here, hey, we're still in the business of publishing comics. Don't worry, we still make comics. So it's periodicals is obviously not the focus, and he's just kind of saying that to make people think like, well, their periodicals aren't going to disappear. But it seems more like they probably are going to disappear as far as ongoing series, except for a few of the very major titles. And the rest is going to be like event driven by these outside arrangements, like a video game to support it. I mean, that's what else could you read from this than that? I think there's definitely a business to be had in physical periodicals. Like, well, yeah, it's supposed to be your main business, so why would you even question it? But that said, I think there's greater upside in digital because we can go to more global audiences. Right. So with global audiences, they just like there's a physical way to distribute it. The problem with the periodicals is selling non-returnable comic books to stores that are on the brink of going out of business, like the comic book stores, is not really viable. They do have a good deal with Walmart to get comics into Walmarts, but there's limitations on what they can put into Walmart and what titles they can put into those Walmart comics and still have the sell-through that they need. Digital is really no limitation. Just go ahead and try to market it and promote it somehow. All right. Well, as he says, it's a lot easier to get digital content into the hands of consumers that want to read stories. We want to lean into that. Lean into that. That's Jason Killar says stuff like that all the time. That's new media talk. Lean into that. And I think thoughtfully what digital content should be, what it should look like, and the format. And the other good thing to know about digital is Marie Javins, who headed digital strategy, and Michelle Wells, who headed the digital young adult imprint, or the young adult imprint, are going to be co-editors-in-chiefs. And their purpose there is to organize their content across digital, across global. Again, digital is the priority. We want to make sure we have diversity and inclusivity and making it in a way that we have the authenticity to the storytelling we're doing. Okay, so yeah, they're going to be the police that are going to make sure that the new comics characters and stories and whatever else, the new content they start producing, which is focused on digital and somehow also periodicals, somehow also print media, will be inclusive and diverse. And that will be their focus. They'll still make some good comics, I'm sure, but they're getting really disciplined to remake themselves. Their website, is not terrible. They have all sorts of comics they're selling on here. I mean, they have thousands upon thousands of comics. I was curious, so I searched for Batman and Neil Adams just to kind of see, do they have stuff from the 1970s and stuff here? They do. They have the Batman by Neil Adams. I guess these are graphic novels that are big collections. But, if you want to go and buy these as print comics, it's pretty damn difficult. It's pretty expensive. They're tough to find. You have to stress out whether or not the condition is going to be, good enough to invest in buying the book and all that. And it's great to collect physical comics, but I can certainly see people finding, Batman and deciding oh yeah, you know what? I never did get those old Neil Adams comics. Or, hey, Crisis on Infinite Earths, I haven't seen that for a long time. Or, whatever else. Dark Knight or the second Dark Knight book that came out. Here's another. It is pretty incredible technology-wise to just be able to say, yeah, okay, that's right, number 405. This cleaned up, not so cleaned up, but sort of cleaned up, scanned version of the original Batman Detective Comics, Batman and Batgirl, going all the way back to, what is this? When the heck was this published? God only knows, in the 1970s. I guess it was republished in 2011, or Detective Comics stopped in 2011. In any event, yeah, there's value to that, to being able to go back and read all of these. As far as the market for digital comics, it's getting reported at 90 million to 100 million a year. I'm sure that doesn't include all the digital comics that are sold. It doesn't include Comixology. There's a lot it doesn't include, but it's not as big as comic stores, being 525 million a year, or book channels. But you have to keep in mind, if DC Comics is selling digital comics, and let's say they have in the direct comic market, and this is really rough numbers, you can't assume this, but I'm going to assume it just for conversation. The direct comic market, they have about a 30% market share, which means of 525 million, they get in retail sales 30% of that, and then net about 40% of that number, which it comes out to about 60 million, 65 million a year in revenues from comic stores. In digital downloads, because they have 30% of the market, it's 157 million approximately, and then 40% of that number is where you get roughly 60 to 65 million dollars in gross sales to comic book stores, gross revenues to comic stores. Doesn't include on an annual basis. It doesn't include sales to other book channels, but keep in mind they only have 10% of the book channel trade market. Scholastic has 40%. It's insane, but Scholastic is really good at the book trade. And Marvel has 10%. So how much do they own of digital? It could be 50%. I have no idea. But if it were 30%, it's probably not 10%. Scholastic is not doing the same business digitally that they're doing physically. So if it was 10%, that would be 9 or 10 million a year in revenue, but it's probably closer to 30%. So maybe they're doing 25, 30 million a year in digital revenue, maybe not. It's not a gigantic number, but if they focused on it as a business, could they grow that to 100 million or 150 million? Potentially, sure. They have to think about how to have more people find this website and interact and buy more from it. Keep in mind that the CEO of Warner Media, Jason Kilar, used to be with Amazon for 7 years as senior vice president. And he also was the co-founder of Hulu. So he knows how to kind of study algorithms and get interaction with people. And I think that business is a lot more interesting to them, trying to figure out how to save comic book stores, because it's kind of impossible. So we'll see how it goes. But I was surprised to see digital in their 2 years of where you expect to see DC Comics in 2 years. I think the answer is he's been told, build a digital business. We will help you. Don't mess it up. Again, definitely let me know what you think of this article. Give me some comments below. Do you think they're going to be doing a lot with digital, being that they mention digital like just constantly? Or not. Maybe you think I'm overstating it. Let me know what you think. Also, subscribe to the channel. It's a huge help to me. And if you want to support my comics, collegeofthedead.com, get a copy of College of the Dead Graduation Day, and sign up at epicmermaids.com to find out when The Mermaids is coming out. We're going to be sending out emails on that soon. All right, I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.